Greystone, the home of Wallace Kimberlin Foster and Mary Helen Foster. We are making this tape so you boys will know where all these things came from. I have forgotten what my mother told me, and Dutchie's forgotten what he heard. So we thought, well, maybe if we made this tape, you boys would remember. So we'll start right here. This is the top of the Grandpa Sam's bed that you will see in another room. This mirror was, Uncle Bobby gave me this. Aunt Joe had bought that for him in a garage sale. And when we started putting this together, the mirror seemed to go really well here. This wash basin, and this, I understand, is a slop jar, which we are just ignoring and assuming they just threw fresh water in there, is from Jackson. And very, very pretty. I always wanted this, and I was so delighted when Daddy brought it back. This table I bought in a junk shop in Tulsa for $10 years ago, and I really have used it. This is the old coal chute that used to sit on the hearth in the living room at 704 East Chester. And Wallace Kimberlin remembers that one of his duties was to keep this full of coal. So, really, really feel fortunate to have this too. Now this is the old shell. Are you zooming in, Dutch?
Coming in.
Okay, this is the old shell that was found on the Lynn property. That's L-Y-N-N. Now that was Grandpa Pat's mother's family. She was, of course, a Foster, but she was a Lynn, L-Y-N-N first. Now this, we believe, is from the Civil War, and it was found on their property up in the northeastern part of Tennessee. This is Grandpa Pat's old, oil can that he used when he was an engineer on the railroad for, what is the name of that place, Dutch?
G&O Railroad.
Okay, G&O. And it has a date on 10/15/1912. And this you received when you became an engineer or something of that nature.
Well, everybody had to have one.
Oh, everybody had to have one. But some way or another, how did his get their brass plaque?
I guess they just did that down at the shops for him.
Oh, they just did that for him. Okay. So anyway, we've had that quite a number of years. And it's been on our hearth a lot. You boys will remember that. Okay, now we're coming into the living room. Our living room and dining room. And the furniture, some of the pieces in here are very, very interesting. But two chairs here that match we bought when we lived on Celia Lane. And as the first time we really did a living room. The sofa we bought when we moved to Cherokee Park. And of course, all of these pieces have been recovered a lot. This chair is from the same Lynn family that we were talking about on the shelf. This was part of a group. It had two love seats and it had two chairs.
That would be Grandpa Pop's, Daddy's mother and Daddy, rather than Grandma's.
Right, right.
Foster
Grandpa
family.
Pat's
Yeah.
mother and her husband, he was a foster too.
Right.
Okay, anyway. When Mom died, she left this chair to Daddy, and it was called the bachelor chair. And I frankly cannot remember the difference between this chair and the other chair. Now, on the love seats, one had arms and one did not. Rosalind has the one without arms, I think, and Doris has the one with arms.
I think
But
that's
we
right.
were delighted to get this chair. And this is what we call the Middleton table. And the reason this is called the Middleton table is because my mother went over to her friend Georgia Middleton's. And Georgia had a bunch of things in the garage she was going to give the Salvation Army. And one of the things was this Middleton table. And Mother, of course, took it home. And so we've always referred to that as the Middleton table. This basket right here was a wedding gift to Mom. And it's crystal. These two crystal pieces I bought here in Austin when a store went out of business up on Mesa. This is the crystal lamp that belonged to Mom's Aunt Rose, who lived in Cincinnati. She was a milliner. She made fancy hats and had been a winner for years and years and years. And when she died, she left Mom. This is a vase. And the guts on top of it can be taken off, and this can be used as a vase. But we've always, and so did Mom, used it as a lamp. Now, this table right here is the library table that was in 704 East Chester, and we really do not know who brought that. Grandma Lola, I suspect, bought most of the furniture that was in 704 or collected it. This was out in the front hall, and at times it did have this on top. These two bookends are from 704 East Chester. These two figurines, Mother brought back from Venice on one of the trips she took to Europe with Aunt Jo. And they're damaged a little bit, but still are really look neat.
Why don't you turn those around so I can see them?
Oh, why don't you move your camera? Okay. Got a close-up on them?
Yeah. Okay.
This lamp, Daddy and I bought here when we redid the family room, which was 7 or 8 years ago. Now, the pictures in this room are going to require some explanation because I got them principally from Uncle Jack. And one summer, he bought all these engravings and then went to the flea market and sold them. And we went up there. In fact, I think he did it 2 or 3 summers because I'd make raids up there and get some. And these are all old, these two top ones are old engravings. And the reason I selected these was just I liked them. And so, but now these were bought after we moved to Austin. This is a piece of handwork that one of the ladies, now there were 3 ladies who principally lived at 704 East Chester. There was Grandma Sue, Grandma Lola, and Mom. And one of the ladies there did this handwork. And I thought it was so pretty that I took it and had it framed. I have a lot of handwork of theirs still. But this was a piece I particularly liked. And they did exquisite work on their handwork. Now this little coffee table here I went in Lexington. When we were getting to move over onto Cherokee Park, I needed some more furniture. And I went down and I was looking at furniture. And they showed me some used furniture that somebody had traded in on things. And I found this little coffee table and that corner bookcase, which everybody loves so much. This is from Jackson, this crystal. Now this is a really interesting piece. This is what my mother used in the early days of her marriage, and it was a wedding gift, for calling cards. In the old days in Hugo, when somebody moved to town, you went, everybody had their own calling cards, and you went in and you introduced yourself and you made chit-chat and all that. And the trick was, when you got to the front door, was to get your calling card in the calling card container without them seeing you. It was to be done very discreetly. You just slipped your card in and bid adieu and went on your way. Now this table is from my mother, 3307 East Easton. And this at one time was a good bit taller. And Roberta came to visit one summer and cut it down. And I think it would have gone on the back of a sofa or something. I don't know what they called it in those days. Anyway, this table has been cut down. And so we've really enjoyed this. Now this lamp back here, there's a few things we still have that Daddy and I purchased when we married. And this lamp and its mate is one of them. We're just using the one lamp at this time because we wanted to use Aunt Rose's lamp in here. Now let's see what else in here. Okay, we're going to go in the dining room now. Oh, this picture, yes, this is really, and I wish I don't know what that says on the bottom. This is a picture that I bought from Uncle Jack. And I wish I had the, stop that a minute, Dutch, from Uncle Jack. And this is an engraving. It's called a Boy Dell engraving, it says on the bottom. And that was a shop in London that had a big enough printing press or something to do these. So it's very nice to own a Boy Dell, and it has $17.95 on it. So that may be the oldest engraving I have. Anyway, that has been reframed. And we left, when you reframe engravings, there's a question about whether to cover up where these lines are or whether to drop them down and show that. And since this is the lines that they believe were on the printing press made, we decided to leave them. And that's why they're there. Now, we'll go on in the dining room. But first, the dining room furniture is from my mother. And I only remember it as being black. There was a type of shellac they used that turned black over the years. And so all this furniture was just really black. This is Philippine, Mother said Philippine mahogany. She and Daddy bought this in Hugo. Someone had bought it and then couldn't keep up the payments. So they went down and they saw this and they bought it for paying out the rest of the payments. Now this had to be moved from Hugo to Tulsa, when they moved to Tulsa. And there was a railroad bridge that went over the road from Hugo to Tulsa. And it was a low bridge. And so when the moving van got there, they stopped on one side and they unloaded all the furniture and took us to the other side. A moving van met them there, reloaded all the furniture, and then took it on to Tulsa. So, and Mother had always said that she wanted me to have this. And when I thought, oh my, what am I going to do with all this black furniture? Well, we got it down to Austin, and Daddy stripped all this himself and refinished it, and it just turned out beautiful. Now, these little knobs up here that are lighter wood, and I think they show better on a chair, that are lighter, and over there, I had never seen those. Those had always looked black to me. So this really did turn out to be a treasure after we finished it. Now, the mirror is new. I had that done about 3 years ago. Now, I'm going to explain about the china. This is Daddy's, and get a good picture of this, Daddy. This is Daddy's and my china that we selected when we married. And this is Daddy's and my silver that we selected. This is Mom's china. Now there's 12 place settings of this and 8 of that. This is my mother's china, which has 8 plate settings. And this is the community plate that she had. Now we'll go over here to the buffet. This is a jelly dish for my mother. I use it as or whatever. I use it for nuts when I entertain. This is an interesting piece because it was made in the United States, and it's crystal, lead crystal, and the company that made this went out of business, so there is no more lead crystal made in the United States. So this is a real treasure for that reason only. This is a vase that Clay sent me for Mother's Day, which I really adore because it has this rose ring around it, which goes with the rose colors I've used in here. So I really like that. Now, we're going to go over here, and this is really, principally, my mother's things are in here. When we brought the china closet and the dining room furniture down here and all of Mother's things that she had had in the china closet, the other girls were not interested in this. There was a dilemma, what to put in there. Whether to put my things in there, just what were we going to do? And I finally elected to just go ahead and use Granny's things in there because they were so familiar to me in this chest, or in this china closet. Now, we're going to talk about tea sets for just a second here. It was fashionable when I was a little girl to be given a china tea set. Now there is my china tea set, which I think all of it is still there. Now I'm going, and here is Sue Josephine's tea set. Now the story on these tea sets is this. Mother let Sue Josephine play with her china tea set, and she broke a bunch of pieces. So I never even played with mine. I didn't even really know this is my china tea set until Mother died, and my aunts were in Tulsa for the funeral, and they were looking in the china closet, and they said, well, Mary, there's your china tea set. So anyway, that explains the china tea sets. Now, someplace in here, and this is one of the main reasons we're doing this tape, I have a wedding gift that was a wedding gift to my grandmother Margaret. And my mother told me, and I have forgotten what it is. I do not know if it is these two pieces. They kind of ring a bell. Or I do not know if it's that candy dish. I just don't know which it was. So I'm really sorry that I have not written things down or taken notes or things like that. This is supposed to be very good crystal. I forgot what you call it. Now let's see if there's anything else real interesting in here. Aunt Joe brought me this, which I had out on the table for a long time, from a garage sale, which I thought was interesting. Now, up here in the crystal, there are two different patterns. This pattern right here is what your father and I selected. And this pattern right here is what my mother had. Now, either she broke all her crystal or crystal was not a popular wedding gift when she married. I am not sure just what. But I think maybe Mother's crystal came from the 5 and dime during the Depression. You could get some wonderful buys at the 5 and dime during the Depression. So perhaps these came from there. I do not use any of this now. Because I don't want to break any of it. So what I did, because really when we entertain in the dining room, it's principally family. I went out and got some living goblets to use because I don't want to break any more of this. Now, let me take a quick peek through here and see if there's, I think this is a real interesting piece. And this was Mother's, and I don't know where it came from, but I've always liked that. And the candlesticks are Mother's. Now, up on top here, this is from Jackson. These two items, the cranberry looking ones, are mine. This, and we have the spoon that goes with this, was a wedding gift to Dutch and I from the IBM employees where he worked when we married in Washington, D.C. This is Mother's. This is Dutch's Mother's. This was Mother's. This was Mother's. This is from the 5 and dime that I bought. This is Dutch's mother. Now, the needlepoint Aunt Alice did. You will see quite a bit of needlepoint that Aunt Alice has done. And I love that. So when we redid this room, I got this out and they had it framed to use in here. And I think this pretty well does the living room, don't you, Dutch?
I think that's about it.
Okay. Here in the living room. That red light is blinking, is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, while we're still here in the living room, dining room area, I want to explain some of this jewelry and this tablecloth. The reason we have this tablecloth on here, which stays most of the time, is when we entertain our bridge clubs. This is one of the tables that we used as a bridge playing table. So I had this made when we redid the living room, and I liked it so much, I think it adds a lot, so I just leave it on all the time, and I don't have to have a centerpiece here. I like the flowers on the buffet better than I did on the table. Now, while we're in here, we're going to do the jewelry. And this is what, ooh, I forgot my gold compact. Anyway, I have a gold compact in a drawer in there that Dutch gave me. And it is got, I think, a couple of 2 or 3 shades of gold, and some of it's rose gold. It's just simply beautiful. But women no longer use loose powder. So it's still in its cloth folder. So that is something, boys, that you all need to remember. Now, this is some of the jewelry. This is a coin from Latvia that Alice gave me one year for Christmas. And it has my birth date on it, 1931. Which, incidentally, we forgot to tell you all, we are doing this tape on May the 22nd, 1993. This is the watch that my father and I went down and picked out together when I graduated from junior high. And I had a big problem on this watch. We went to Zales. Now, I could have had a bulba or something like that, but no stones on either side. Or this was the watch that the Zales company made themselves, and I could have this with the 2 little red stones. So anyway, I can remember debating about which to do. And I got the one with the, decided to go, not to go with the name, but to get the one with the 2 little red stones. And on the back it has my name, Mary Helen Haynes, 1945. This was Dad's elf ring. And that is such a pretty ring. I wear that sometimes. Just on my 3rd finger. I think it's just such a pretty little ring. Now, can't get it on. This was the watch your father gave me, and this is an Elgin, the first Christmas we were married. This is an old watch of Granny's. Now, I should have a watch around here that they gave Granny when she quit playing the organ in Emmanuel Baptist Church, but I was in a hurry and just couldn't lay my finger. So.
Hold it up again so I can see it.
Oh, okay. And this is
Okay.
just a watch.
Okay.
It's a Seiko, it says on the back. This is an old cameo of Mother's.
Okay.
This is Mom's locket. And you boys may remember, some of you, when we went to Mom and Dad's 50th wedding anniversary, her brothers and sisters got together and gave her this locket. And it says on the back, it has her initials, and it says, well, I guess if I turn it upside, 1921 to 1971. Now, this diamond that I have on right here used to belong to my good friend Val's. You'll see something else of Val's in the house. Val died. And after she had been dead 2 or 3 years, I purchased this diamond from her husband. It was on this band. I had the diamond put in this ring, which is when Daddy and I had been married 25 years, we took my original diamond, which is this one, and had it put just in the plain gold band here. Then when we were married 30 years, I added these 2 little diamond bands on the outside and had them soldered on, and also got a dinner ring that I forgot to bring out. Okay, now that explains Val's diamond, my engagement diamond. This diamond I purchased this year, same time I purchased Val's diamond. Well, actually, I purchased Val's diamond about 2 weeks later. So it was really a great treat to have two really pretty diamonds at the same time. This bracelet, Daddy brought me from Singapore when Daddy was over there, and then he flew on to Australia to meet Joe and Clay. This big gold bracelet is a new purchase. Also bought this year. I have been out in the jewelry stores, kids. This beautiful little gold and pearl bracelet, Daddy got me this years and years ago in Kentucky. Gold used to have a standard price, and it couldn't go up and it couldn't go down. So when you went out to buy jewelry, you could buy gold jewelry for just a little bit more than you could costume jewelry. And why we weren't farsighted enough to just go ahead and buy all the gold we could lay our hands on, I'll never know. But the gold standard or the gold rate had stayed the same for years and years. So, and this is my watch, and which I've had, maybe 10 years. So that kind of explains the jewelry. Now we're going to walk in toward the front doors. I want you all to see the front doors. Following me?
The dog.
Oh, this is Daphne, our dog, that used to belong to Jack. But she's ours now, and we dearly love her.
Hi, Duck.
Okay, honey, that's enough on the dog. Now, these are the front doors that were on the house at 704 East Chester. And when the highway came through, you're going to see a picture of 704 East Chester in just a minute. When the highway came through, the house was to be torn down, and Daddy went up to help Rosalind and Mom, to help move Mom over to the house on Franwood. And someone had come in and was just going to, they bought everything. They were like a demolition crew, but there were so many pretty old things. They had lovely wood curtain rods. They were just gorgeous old French doors and all this. And what they did with those things would then sell them to someone who was buying a new home, like the old staircase probably went into someone's home. In fact, I think we heard something about where that went one time. So anyway, the front doors were there and they had curtains on them. And Daddy called from Jackson and he said, would you like to have those front doors? And I said, ooh, I'd love to. So Daddy purchased these front doors from the salvage guy for $125. And you couldn't even get near that. And we, I mean, that was really a marvelous buy. They're beveled, and they just add so much to our house. This is all the fittings that were on the doors in Jackson. Now, we had the hinges and this rebrassed. This is the old door handle. This is the old lock to the front door, which is not easy to operate. Daddy had to cut these doors down a little bit on the side to fit in here, but it certainly does let light in the house, and so we really like these doors. Now we're going to go into this hall, and then on into the bedroom. Now, let's go back into this hall, because there's some goodies in here needs explaining. Crazy light. Okay, this originally, when we moved in the house, this was a linen closet, and this over here on the right, honey, was a coat closet. Well, all anybody seems to keep in closets, and certainly all we kept, were out-of-date coats and stuff you didn't want to throw away, and the vacuum lived in here and all this. We would never have opened this closet to anyone's view. So we decided when we got ready to remodel and put in the new floors and all that we would change these into bookshelves because we have such a collection of books. Now we're going to start up here at the top. These are scrapbooks that Jack and Alice did one Christmas, Jack and myself. And I think there are a couple of scrapbooks in here from Dutch's family. But these are and there are newspaper clippings and all kinds of things in here. This is just something Mother had. Now this Wedgwood is gifts that Daddy gave me. He went to England and he brought some Wedgwood back and all. I was quite into Wedgwood at one time. And this is what Daddy brought back. I've always loved this bowl. And it is such a dark green bowl that I have never ever been able to really use it any place. On a table or anything, it's just too dark. So anyway, but we have that out here. Now, the rest of these items, these onyx bookends here, when we took you children to Mexico, you know, when we had to stay on the Mexican side of the border, and none of us ever been back since, we bought these. Now, over on this other side here, over here to the left are Granny's diaries. Now, those are really full of information. They tell all about Bunny and Jax and my childhood. This Daddy brought me from Japan one time. And that was also when he went to Singapore and then on to Australia. Daddy hated Japan. Oh my God. If he ever had to go back, I was going to go back with him because I didn't think he could take another trip to Japan. Now this is an orange pitcher, and it at one time had goblets with it, and this was a wedding gift to Mother. It's quite heavy. And I was just talking to my Aunt Roberta a week or two ago, and she asked me about this orange pitcher. Everybody really liked this orange pitcher, but it is another kind of decorating nightmare because unless you use orange, what are you going to do with it?
No, the battery's going out.
Okay, this is the master bedroom where Daddy and I sleep. And this room has just been redone too, as the living room has. There are just a few items in here of interest. This bed here is solid cherry underneath this gold color, and when it was brought to we bought this when we were getting ready to move down here to Austin. I bought this in Lexington. And it had been damaged, and so they painted it to cover up the damaged part of it. And so really, sometime I'd like for Daddy to refinish this in the cherry. This picture I bought when I did the family room. This is interesting because I was talking about Val's diamond. Val was into miniatures the last 3 or 4 years of her life. And this is a little miniature garden room that she did. And after she died, Val and I were really good friends. And her husband, she had some miniature doll houses and all that were really big. And he asked me about them, and I said, I would like to have this little garden room. And so this is the little garden room. And she made all the little plants and everything in there she made by hand. Now, this bedspread is interesting because when we got ready to do this room, I told the woman, the decorator who I was working with, that I wanted a bedspread. I was tired of a comforter, and I'd had a comforter, and you had to use all these extra pillows and things. And so she brought this fabric out, and I just fell in love with it. I said, I love that fabric. Yes, make that into a bedspread. Now, one of the reasons I didn't like the comforter was not only the pillows, but it was so heavy to lift around. So anyway, she comes back out with this bedspread, which is all padded and quilted and even heavier than the comforter I had. So most of the times, I don't even have this on. I just spread up the bed and don't put this on. It's a chore, I'm telling you. Now this chair right here is a rocker from 3307 East Easton. Alice did the needlepoint on the seat of it. Now, the boys tell me, I've forgotten this, that when I was a little girl, there was some little girl I invited home to play one day. And evidently, Mother, get this from the front, don't you, because the harp is so pretty. Mother felt that she was kind of tacky or something. But anyway, the little girl got to rocking real big in this rocker and went over backwards and broke it right here. So Daddy, when we got the rocker, Daddy fixed this. It stayed just kind of broken at Granny. Daddy put some tape on here and then kind of did over it. Anyway, this is why this is not set in. And it wasn't set in much at 3307 after the little girl broke it. Because you have to be very careful not to re-break this. Now this is a needlepoint picture that Alice did, which I've always liked. Now, as we go on around the room, this old trunk is from Jackson. And when Mom died, and they got to cleaning out the house on Franwood where Mom had moved after 704 East Chester, they went out in the garage and there was some storage room out there, and here was his trunk, and it was just really gross looking. It was all brown and just really bad looking. And so Daddy has gotten this as tin and wood. And Daddy had stripped it and did everything to it and polished it up. And then I think he put polyethylene on it or whatever that stuff is. And we were over in a store checking on this old trunk and saw a larger old trunk than this one. And I've forgotten, what was the date that had on it? It was in
1880.
1880 for this old trunk. So that comes from around that time. And this picture is real interesting because it is done on a newspaper. This is the Capitol. And when they built onto the Capitol, or let's see what this thing says. It's the new interior of the new dome of the Capitol. And this was printed in a newspaper. You can see the crease going up through here without color. And somebody meticulously painted all the color in this. And on the back of this is the date of the newspaper and all. So I think that's pretty because I like the Capitol, the picture of the Capitol, and also interesting because it's on an old newspaper. Now, this cherry dresser here goes with the bed and the chest of drawers that are in the back room. The bed and the chest of drawers we're holding for Clay when he gets a house with more bedrooms than he has now. And someday this dresser should go on with the bed and the chest of drawers. The fan is on here because we sleep to the sound of a fan. And so we always have a fan in the room. And one of the most embarrassing things Daddy ever had to do was in January, our fan gave out. And I couldn't sleep without the sound of a fan. And Daddy had to go over to Edison's and ask for a fan. And they laughed in his face. He said, "A fan? What do you want a fan for?" And he had to confess that his wife slept to the sound of a fan, and they had to get up in the attic over at Edison's and get out a fan for him. So, anyway, this fan's lasted quite a few years. So we hope it continues to.
Save the marriage.
Right. This is bunnies of my twin pictures. And I'm not sure what age we were in these pictures. But we were, I don't know, maybe 3, something like that. I do have some hair, maybe 4, I don't know. But anyway, Mother took us to the photographer, and to get us to relax and laugh and all, he threw a red ball, and I have caught the red ball in this picture. So Bunny had his picture, and I had mine. And one time when I was up to see Uncle Bunny, he said, "Mary, would you rather have the clock that sat on the mantel at 3307 East Easton or my picture?" And I said, "Bunny, I'd rather have your picture." So anyway, I have both the twin pictures. And these are Kimberly and Ann, and their pictures over there are Michael. And now, let's see. This picture over the bed I just bought. And I think that kind of concludes it in here. So let's go back out this way. Daddy's in the family room shooting toward the front doors. Now, I've already explained about these goodies in the front hall. Now, these goodies right here, this is a wrought iron candelabra that I got with green stamps here in Austin. So it's always hung out here, and I've always just adored it. This is a picture of Mom's sister Rosalind. And this is out here because I love this old frame. And the green, I think this is just a real pretty picture. I like this real well. And Mom's sister, as you know, died when she was about 20 or 21 in childbirth. And so this is Mom's sister, Rosalind. Not your Aunt Rosalind. Your Aunt Rosalind was named after this Rosalind. Now, we're coming on into the family room. And Daddy, you'll get down there and shoot this way. This is the family room, and we have really enjoyed this room. It's just really been wonderful. Now, this is his current reincarnation, and we hope to last for quite a while. We'll start over here with this old table. This old table is marble top, and it came from Jackson. And after Mom died, Daddy brought this back. This old clock sat on the mantle on Franwood. Now, I do not remember where the old clock was at 704 East Chester.
It was in Granddad's bedroom.
Oh, it was in Grandpa and Grandma's bedroom. Okay. It was Grandpa Pat worked on clocks. People would bring their clocks to him. He did that, you know, he was also the railroad engineer. But as a hobby, he worked on clocks. And people would bring him clocks. So we don't know just where this old clock came from. Whether somebody brought it to him and never came to pick it up, or whether he was out buying parts for old clocks and saw this, we just don't know. The tintypes on here, this is Dutch's father. And when we were up in Jackson a few years before Mom died, I was talking about this tintype of my father and his sister. And she said, oh, well, she thought she had one of Dad. And she went in and found this and gave it to me. And so we really enjoy those. This is Dad's old pocket watch, which we put in the dome thing. Now, we'll move on over to this bookcase, Dutch, because there's a couple of things in here. This is Wedgwood again that Daddy brought me back from England. This is a fan that Clay gave me. This is cranberry glass that I bought when we moved to Austin. I wanted to use some cranberry in my room, and so there were two of these. These are candlesticks, but one of them got broken. Now, this right here is a picture we got when we went and when we went out, when Clay was on Wheel of Fortune, and we toured the Queen Mary. And Daddy had, when we first made our trip to California with you boys, Daddy had said, well, now you start buying something, you know, that we can bring back and remember. So, anyway, this is the one from the Queen Mary. This is a house at 704 East Chester. Now, Daddy was born in this bedroom right here. This was also the bedroom that Daddy and I stayed in and slept in the Grandpa Sam bed. How we did it, I'll never know. When you boys were little. And there was a baby bed in this room, and the baby would be in the baby bed, and we'd have a rollaway. We kind of camped out in this big front room. It was a huge room. This we got when we went up to New England. And that's a prism, and in one of the old ships, they had used these prisms to let light in below deck, and I thought that was real pretty. This, of course, is a replica, and got that. Now, this old trunk here in the fireplace, my grandfather Margrave had a Packard touring car, and this old trunk came off of that. Now, when I was a child, and we would go from Tulsa to Hugo to visit the grandparents, Rosie, who was the woman who helped my mother, would come and she'd iron up all our clothes. It was before perma-press, and they'd all be packed in here. And so when Mother died and I went up there, all of us went, but anyway, my brother Jack said, hey, he said, you remember the old trunk? And we used to go back and look at all the clothes neatly laid in there. It'd take Rosie a couple of days to get everything packed. He said, you won't believe the size of the old trunk. Well, I thought it was huge. One of the uses they did for it was they put it between the front and the back seat, and put a blanket on it and a sheet, and we used it as a bed going down there. Of course, it took us hours, probably 8 hours to go from Tulsa to Hugo in those days. So anyway, he brought, this is the old trunk. It was so much smaller than either he or I had remembered. But I brought it back and had it refinished because it had been out in the garage and it had been rained on and it was in terrible condition. But this is a marvelously old, wonderful, tacky wallpaper that was in it, which I said, don't change that, you know. So, anyway, that's the old trunk. Now, this Alice did for me, and that's kind of self-explanatory. This was my grandfather Haynes's shaving mug. And if you take the flowers out, you can see where they put the brush and all of this. These two pieces I got at the as-is shop over at Louis Shanks one time after we moved to Austin. Now, we'll keep on going around the room here. The Pele's here, so when Daphne comes in and we have to open this door, it doesn't bang against this furniture, so we just keep that Pele there except when we have company. And Daphne goes to visit Jack. This is my desk, right here, this rooster. It's got everything I need to know inside that rooster. Plus we keep cash in there. This is a floor lamp from Jackson. And that Daddy brought back. And it's just a real pretty floor lamp. Now, we're going over here. This lamp looks like an antique and everybody thinks it is, but in reality it is not. I bought that at best 15 or 20 years ago. And anyway, we've enjoyed it. This fan has an interesting history. This was Amy's fan. And that's my father's older sister. And she was born in Kentucky, as all the children were born in Kentucky before they came to Oklahoma. And the obstetrician who delivered her, this was the first baby he ever delivered. After he had delivered her, he went to the Spanish-American War down in Cuba. And while he was there, he bought this fan for Amy, only because she was the first baby he had ever delivered. So when he came back, he had the fan. So we had that frame. This clock, Daddy and I got on our 15th wedding anniversary. And we went over to McGuire's clocks and looked and looked and looked and looked. And then we got this. So this was bought after we arrived in Boston. The pictures over the sofa are Godey's Ladies. Some of them. There's one of them in there that isn't. I think it's the one on the far right. That came from Godey's Ladies magazine. Now, the story on Godey's Ladies magazine was it was published in the East. And women in the West, such as in the early days of Texas, and all bought that magazine and they looked at the clothes in there. And that's how they just then made up the clothes as best they could without patterns. It was before patterns. So that's why they all took Godey's Ladies magazine. And that these come from there. The pictures over on this far wall, you get them? Pictures over on this far wall, the two, this one and this one and this one, I got from Uncle Jack. Now, and they are self-explanatory if you read them. These two pictures, Daddy had diplomas and he belonged to all kinds of honorary societies and stuff. And so when he would bring something home, Mom would put it in a frame. So, anyway, it all came. One time she said, okay, WK, I want you to take all of your goodies. So he did. And so we got to looking behind there. And what she had done was there were old pictures around the house, and she had just slipped those diplomas in over the old pictures. And we found this one and this one with Daddy's diplomas on top of them. Now, we've had them reframed. But it was really a treasure hunt, and we started taking all of the diplomas out looking, but we only found these two. Now, let's go this way. Now we're going to start in here. This is the brass bed that Grandpa Pat and Grandma Lola bought when they married, which was up in the front hall upstairs at 704 East Chester and up over the staircase. So we've had this quite a few years. Mom said one year to Daddy when he was up there, why don't you take the brass bed? So we had it shipped back down here. I think it came at the same time the doors did, I'm not sure. Now this big piece here is the dresser that went with the Grandpa Sam bed. He bought this dresser and then he made the bed to match. Now we're not using them both in the same room because they're both such interesting pieces that we wanted one in one room and one in the other. So, and this is a rocker from 704 East Chester. This little rocker, after Daddy brought this back and all this furniture, then we went out and just bought this little rocker at an antique store. This is, can you come around over here, honey? This is a picture of Dad at a very young age that hung in the hallway on Fran wood. And so Daddy brought that picture home. And this is the flag that was used when Dad died. Now under that this is my old doll chest from when I was a little girl. And it's what I kept my dolls in. It has seen better days, but it's still a real neat thing to have. I really like that. Now, let's go back over here to this dresser here. This is just an old box. It's got some old scarves and stuff in it. And as you all know, I like old boxes, so I'm using that. This is an old purse that was found in Mom's things. Let's get this under the light for it to really show. Now they must have, I don't know the history on this, but surely they carried this when they went dancing or something. So I've got this out. These are old books and scrapbooks from both sides of the family, and some of them are really old. So you guys need to check on that. Now, we're going to look here at this old trunk. This was the Roseland that we saw out, picture of out in the front hall's trunk. This was an old picture Mom had that I really love. This turned on the gas, up the lights, the gas lights that they had. And this is Mom's old sewing box. Now, over here, this is the corner bookcase we were talking about when I was explaining the coffee table in the living room that I found that time. And this, I think, has always been in this room. And different boys have been in this room, but this old corner bookcase has always stayed here. Now we're going to open up this trunk here and look at the quilts. I'm going to look in here and see the old quilts, and I'll explain to you what I know about them. This old quilt was a quilt both my grandmothers made for me when I was born. Now, people who quilted, such as Roberta and Virginia, say, that's Mama Stitch. My grandmother Haynes did the little sunbonnet girls. And then my grandmother Margrave did the quilting. So I have used this on twin beds, as you guys know. But not until after everybody was raised and we had no cats and just one dog that we could keep out of the room where these quilts were. Because this quilt with this quilt really makes a cute, cute bedroom. Now this is Grandma Lola did this one. This is butterflies. And that's a real pretty quilt. Now remember, that's all hand stitching. Now I'm getting down in here. We've got some more down in here. Okay. This is what you call a wedding ring quilt. And when my mother married, you got a wedding ring quilt. Your family, or I don't know who, made you a wedding ring quilt. And this is the pattern of the wedding ring quilt. Now let me see if I can find them. Got another one. Ah, in fact, I got a couple more. Now this old quilt, I think, came from my grandmother Haynes' side of the family. And it's really in kind of bad condition. Now, not due to my grandmother Haynes, but maybe due to my mother, I'm not sure. Anyway, it was stuffed up in our linen closet and got kind of rough treatment. But this is a pretty old quilt. And then here, when Mother died, up along with this was just the top of this, or where she had sewn these. I think this is called the flower garden or something, where she had sewn all this together, and it didn't have any backing on it. So I wanted to use it. So I took it and had the backing put on. Now, all this quilting stuff here is done by machine, but the flowers were done by my mother. And it's not a full-size quilt, but it sure does take care of what we want it for. Anyway, that's all of that's in this trunk. The twin beds with the quilts used to be on. Then after Mom died, she left Daddy this bed. Now this is the Grandpa Sam bed that he built by hand. Instantly, and we think he built the front doors too. And also, I gave the wrong address. It's 4013 instead of 4313. Okay, this is the bed he made. And it's real interesting because it's not a normal size bed. And there's a felt mattress on here. And then there's springs. But what is real interesting is he cut out every little place for the slats by hand. I mean, it's just the most interesting bed. Now, the big thing out in the front hall would go over the top of this. We'd fit on this bed and go over the top. We tried that and thought it just overwhelmed the room. So, Mom had never used the top either. So, in fact, it still had the original green paint that Grandma Lola painted everything. So, anyway, we used that out in the front hall and this here. Now, this table over here is also from Jackson. And it works really well in here. Now we're going to look at this real pretty over here. And honey, do you call this a washstand?
Yeah, and usually it stays in the bathroom.
Okay, yeah, it was in the bathroom at 704 East Chester downstairs.
Yeah.
And it was in the bathroom on Franwood. Now all this work was done by the ladies at 704 East Chester. This is an old coal lamp that Daddy brought back. The two chairs in here we bought at the antique store when we got the rocker in there. The two ladder backs in here. So I don't think we're probably going to do anything to these two pieces of wood. I think we're going to leave them just as they are. This is beveled glass, and you guys can figure out what to do with it later.
There's a wash basin over there. Came from Jackson.
Oh, right. Now this is a real pretty wash basin, but we don't have the picture that goes with it. And this came from Jackson. And this quilt, this is another Jackson quilt. This bed is made as it was when we visited Mom in Jackson. Even down to the sheets. She had sheets for it, and we were out of double bed sheets, so it even has the double bed sheets.
And I slept in the bed until I went to the Navy.
Right, you did. You and Pat slept in this bed.
Right, me and Pat.
Then you and I slept in this bed. I'll never know how, because there was no air conditioning. We'd be down there in the summer. It was hotter than blue blazes. But they had a big fan in the kitchen that would pull the air in the windows and the curtains would bellow out, and that would give you just a breath of air. This is Daddy's office. This used to be Jack's bedroom, and he stayed in here. Jack is the only one that ever stayed in the same bedroom the whole time he was here. And this was his room, and he said, I'm never, when he got here, and everybody started switching bedrooms, he said, I'm never leaving that bedroom. So this was Jack's bedroom. This Afghan is from 704 East Chester. I think Grandma Lola probably did this. It's on the back of Mom's sofa in the family room on Franwood. Now, up here are some interesting things. This is the, and all this needs polishing, so don't pay attention. This is the first thing that Daddy said, let's go buy something. And this is when we were in California with you boys. I think Kim had just graduated high school. So you guys had gone off. Some of you went over to Oakland. Some went back down to the wharf. And Daddy and I went shopping, and we found this. Now this is a little steam engine that Daddy had as a little boy. And we mounted it. And I don't think it makes steam anymore, but Daddy has the stuff that will make it make steam.
Put a candle in there and put some water in there and take off.
Okay. So anyway, that's a treasure that's been all over the house, but right now it's up here. This is the clock Daddy got when he had been with IBM 25 years. They used to get clocks. This is just something I bought. This is a brass cat that Daddy and I both looked at, and its feet weren't brassed real good. I didn't think it had real good brassing on it. So I said, well, let's not get it. And so when Christmas came along, Daddy bought himself this cat. He liked the cat. This is from Jackson. This is a model car Daddy must have done while he was in Jackson. When I went to Ireland with Clay, we really didn't do much shopping, and I was just trying to think of something to bring back. I could not find anything I really liked. So I brought back this wood cutting, which has never really worked any place very well. But anyway, it's in here, and that I did get that in Ireland. Let's see what else is in here. Oh, here's a little old safe bank, and that, yeah, bank. Looks like from Jackson. This is from Jackson, this little toy.
What toys? Yeah.
Right. You put a stick in it some way or another and made it hop along.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what this is, Doug.
That's a watch that Jack and Kelly gave me.
Oh, okay. This is an old iron that they, ooh, and is it heavy? You used to, ooh, this is heavy. Ooh. You used to have to put this on a stove that you had wood in or coal in,
Mm-hmm.
and you get it really, really hot. And then you would lift it off of there and try to iron. I'm sure glad I didn't have to do that. Now, let's see. I think that's about all. Yeah, oh, this old desk, Dutch. Now, Mom got this old desk and the washstand we just looked at in the Grandpa Sam bedroom with, Grandma Lola got them, with Larkin stamps. Now they must have been like Jewel T stamps or something, I'm not sure. But anyway, once a month, she was in a club, and everybody got together, and somebody got all the stamps one month that they had made with their purchases. So Mom got this one time, and she got that washstand in there one time. This is the marble game that Dad could do, really do fast. And this is just a little old toy from Dutch.
Yeah, one of my toys.
Right, one of Dutch's toys. And I'm not sure what that
I
is.
think that's a head scratcher.
A head scratcher.
You take it apart and scratch your head.
Oh, right. Let's show them how it does.
Pull it apart.
See, it comes apart like that.
Comb your hair.
Right.
Do something with it.
Boy, it really feels good. We're going to put that back together later. Okay, let's move on. Ready?
Okay, here we go.
Oh, we need to go to the kitchen, honey, so you might want... Boys, I've got to tell you about a couple more items in here. This is the old tool chest that Grandpa Sam made. Now, we think maybe he took the top of a door use the top of the door here to make the top. And then use just regular wood to make the rest of it. Now I saw in a magazine one time an old chest just like this. It must have been in style then, only it didn't have this raised part on the top, which is where he used the old door, we think. And so when we got this, this was green. Because one time Grandma Lola saw in a magazine furniture that was painted green. So she painted everything green, including the brass bed. And the Grandpa Sam bed and all, and I've already explained to you about it, it was still green when Daddy brought it
Yeah,
home.
not the brass bed, but Grandpa Sam's bed.
Yeah, the top of Grandpa Sam's bed.
Yeah.
So now here's the key to it. And when this held all of Grandpa Sam's old tools. And so when Daddy would want a tool, he would go to Grandma Lola, and she kept this key hanging on a hook outside the kitchen door. And she would get the key, she would unlock it, she'd give Daddy a tool, Daddy would go do whatever he had to with the tool, he would return it to her, she would get the key, unlock it, put it back in, and lock it back, and put the key back. So that's kind of interesting. But even, and the picture I saw in the magazine, even had the same hardware. So, anyway, we like that. And this is just a box they had. I don't know if this was a candy box or what. That I think is real pretty, and it has some real pretty old handkerchiefs in it. These are old handkerchiefs, and they're just really yummy. Now, this, you all haven't seen because we haven't seen you since Daddy finished this. This was my mother's old sewing machine. And we used it in the brass bedroom with a cover over it until, because it was high enough for the brass bed, because the brass bed is higher than a normal bed, until we brought the other stuff back from Jackson. So then we put this out in the garage, and I said, well, we really ought to refinish that. So Daddy refinished it, and it just turned out beautiful, but it was too tall once again. So we cut off some at the bottom of the legs. But the old sewing machine is still in there. It's a Franklin. And I don't know what, come look here at the front. I don't know what, where she got it. There's the front of it. I know she got a lot of things from Sears. So this possibly came from Sears. This old magazine rack that I'm trying to lift here, it has its plan in it. I got, when Roy died, we went up to the funeral, and we, right adjacent to the funeral home was a flower shop where we all bought flowers. And I went in there, and they had this old magazine thing, and I bought it, and then we shipped it back. So that's another, it's a new goodie for us, but it's one we really like. Now we're going to go into the kitchen. I think I've just about done everything in here. Now the kitchen, of course, we painted all the paneling white in this family room. And all of this in here was stained. And we decided that we wanted a white kitchen. So we painted, come on in, honey, and pan it around in here. We painted all the cabinets, and a man come out and do the refrigerator, and I'm telling you, it took a full 8 hours. And he played country western music for 8 hours, and really loud in this house. I finally escaped and went someplace. Now, as we go around, this is one of the treasures from Jackson. This and the old cold chute or chest or whatever out in the front hall. Everybody laughed when Daddy said, "Well, I want those," because I had told Daddy that's what I like. This is dates back from the Spanish-American War again, and it's a hat rack. And there used to be 3 more places on here to hang hats. And it's copper. And I think it's just simply beautiful, and it really looks pretty here. And this old high chair was Roberta's. When we got through having children, and I was having Kim, she gave me the high chair and the baby bed. And the baby bed is the one we still have, and this old high chair. Now, this table in here we used the wrought iron table and chairs, which is also one of the original purchases that I made when Daddy and I married. And there's there's just a few things that we still have that we had that first year of marriage. And the wrought iron table is one, and the lamps in the living room are another, and the Revere ware I got for my wedding, I'm still using. That stuff is good. But anyway, Daddy, the Underoos were doing something different in their kitchen. So Daddy heard that they had this table and chair. So he went up there and looked, and he said, I think they're real pretty. And I said, well, just buy them. So he bought it. We needed a bigger table because we'd outgrown the wrought iron table. So Daddy got these table and chairs for us, and then he refinished them. Now this is I paid more for this than any of my other little doodads in the house, but I just love those. So, and we have done soup out of it once, and maybe again. Now this chest goes with the twin beds that Joe and Rhonda have. And I got this when Clay was getting ready to be born. And so Jack and Kim, this was their first bedroom suite, was this, and it has a mirror that goes over it, and I don't know who has the mirror, it's a small mirror, and the twin beds. Now I got this idea. Daddy and I were over where Ross's used to be like a great big huge hardware-like store. And Daddy and I were over there, and I saw these are table legs. And I said, let's get some of these and make them into candlesticks, and so we did. Now this is the only actual thing I ever refinished or stained. They were, of course, just raw lumber or wood or whatever. And Daddy was busy doing something else, and he said, well, you just rub it on, paint it on there and rub it off and have at it. So this is really the only actual thing I ever did. This mirror, I've always loved this mirror. And they quit making these mirrors now. That's a Benz Wagner mirror. And I think they quit making them. Anyway, I wanted this for the living room. This is a Kate Greenway engraving that, of course, I got from Jack. This is interesting because this is another little thing that we did when we were out shopping one day. I needed a little stand, not to put this on, but it was something else, because this is a relative new acquisition. But anyway, we couldn't find a little stand. So we went to Michael's, and this is 2 C's. Down here on the bottom, we bought 2 C's and bought this little top and made this little stand. And so, anyway, that's the story on that. Now, let's see, over here in the kitchen, I wanted to show you this, because it's really amazing what you remember from your childhood. This is the old jelly dish that always sat on the table at 3307 East Easton when I was growing up. And it usually had grape jelly in it, but they would can strawberries in the summer and make, I guess it was strawberry jam or something. Anyway, you could see the whole strawberry in there. When you put it on your toast, you had to smash that strawberry around. I mean, it was really not a lot of fun. So we've just always, in our family, used grape jelly, which is easier. But anyway, that's a treasure I have from Tulsa, which I love. Now, we are not showing you the bathrooms or the utility room. Now, that was supposed to be a storage room when we bought this house. Because it was fairly big, I mean, it wasn't large. I think it's, 10 feet by 9 feet or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 4 boys. We thought, well, that'd make if sometimes some boy wants to have that for a room, that'd make a great bedroom. I think everybody had that room at some time or another except Jack, who stayed in his own bedroom. And there's not much back in there now, but we're not showing that. There's the bed and the bedstead and the chest of drawers for Clay, and then just the Christmas tree, and then just some odds and ends back there. But anyway, this is essentially where we live and where you lived when you were growing up. And we do hope that someday all of these things that we really enjoy and have so much respect for will find a happy home with you all.
I think I'll go outside and show the front and back of the house.
Well, if it's not light enough, we would really like to show you the front of the house and the yard.
We'll give it a try.
Okay, we'll give it a try and see how it works. It's getting a little late out here, but we're going to see if we can get the front of the house and the yard while we're doing this. We have to get this tape back to Kim. Now, Kim and Joe, I know I haven't mentioned you by name, but it's only because we haven't run across anyone. You're just as dear to us as the other two who we have mentioned by name. Now, this is the front of the house. Now, the doors, of course, are new, but the rest of the house is essentially the way it was when we moved down here. We've had one new roof, and we're going to have to replace this one, and probably going to use the same color again. Now, after you boys were grown, and Joe went off to college, then Daddy and I decided that we would start working on this yard. It really wasn't very pretty until Daddy and I decided to work on it. We started off with this half up here was just pretty much gone. So we bought a bunch of sod and we wetted it down really good, and then we went barefoot and just crossed here and just put the sod in. Now we're going to walk on down this way. Now Jack helped a lot with this. Here you go, Jack. Here's your moment of fame. Jack, I said, Jack, I want to do something out there in the front to make this house look better. And so Jack kind of helped me lay out the curves and all. And so it worked out just really well. Now we're going to walk on around to the back. Daddy's had all these trees. Every spring, Daddy gets out here and works on the trees, and I keep wondering if we're going to have any trees left, because he keeps taking branches out. Now these are the oleanders. Daddy cut these back this year, and that's why they're not blooming better than they usually do. But anyway, they bloom real pretty when they bloom. We put in this stone wall to give it a little interest. Okay, Daddy, let me get this guy. Now these irises and daylilies are from Jackson. We'll walk on up here. Got some fire ants. This is what we keep in this thing, is impatience. We've had several years now without a freeze, a